you found this message. That wasn't random. That wasn't the algorithm serving you another piece of content to consume mindlessly while your coffee gets cold. Something deeper guided you here, to this exact moment, to these precise words. And if you're still reading, if something inside you just stirred with recognition, then you've already begun to understand what October represents for those who have been chosen. The signs have been building, haven't they? Those moments when time seems to stretch and compress simultaneously. When you catch yourself staring at cloud formations that feel like messages written in a language you almost remember. When conversations with strangers carry undertones of meaning that your rational mind can't quite grasp, but your soul recognizes immediately. You've been experiencing what quantum physicists call observation collapse, where your consciousness is literally reshaping reality simply by witnessing it. But here's what most people don't understand about being observed by the universe. It's not passive. You're not just being watched like some cosmic experiment. You're being actively selected, calibrated, prepared for something that most humans will never experience. October marks the culmination of a process that began the moment you first questioned whether there might be more to existence than what your five senses report. Every spiritual tradition throughout history has described this phenomenon using different language. The Hindus called it moksha. The Buddhists speak of enlightenment. Christians describe being born again. But what they're all pointing toward is the same quantum event, the moment when individual consciousness recognizes itself as universal consciousness temporarily wearing a human mask. When this recognition moves from intellectual concept to cellular knowing, everything changes, not because the universe suddenly starts responding to you differently, but because you finally start responding to the universe as the creative force you've always been. The mathematics of consciousness are more precise than most people realize. Your awareness isn't confined to your brain tissue. It extends beyond the boundaries of your skull, beyond the limits of your skin, creating what researchers call a morphic field that influences reality within a measurable radius around your physical form. Every thought generates electromagnetic frequencies. Every emotion broadcasts specific vibrational signatures. Every intention creates ripples in the quantum field that surrounds and interpenetrates all matter. When you began questioning consensus reality, when you started sensing that something profound was shifting beneath the surface of ordinary experience, your morphic field began changing frequency. Higher dimensional information started flowing through channels that had been dormant since childhood. Your DNA began expressing genetic sequences that scientists classify as junk DNA, but which actually contain the biological blueprints for expanded consciousness. This is why you've been feeling different lately, why old patterns that once felt normal now feel constraining, why relationships built on surface-level connections suddenly feel hollow, why work that once provided meaning now feels like elaborate time wasting. Your consciousness is upgrading its operating system, and the old programs are becoming incompatible with your new configuration. The selection process isn't based on worthiness or spiritual achievement. It's based on readiness, on your nervous system's capacity to handle higher frequencies of information without fragmenting. Every challenge you've faced, every moment of confusion you've navigated, every time you've had to rebuild your understanding of reality from the ground up, has been preparing your consciousness for this expansion. Think about the most disorienting experiences of your life. The times when everything you thought you knew got turned upside down. When relationships ended unexpectedly. When career paths dissolved without warning. When health challenges forced you to confront mortality. These weren't random disruptions. They were systematic deconstructions of limiting identity structures so that something larger could emerge through you, your future self. The version of you that exists beyond linear time has been orchestrating these experiences from outside the constraints of chronology. They can see the entire trajectory of your evolution, and they've been seeding your current reality with exactly the right catalyst moments to prepare you for conscious participation in reality creation. October represents a convergence point where multiple timelines intersect. The version of you that remains trapped in consensus reality limitations, and the version that steps consciously into quantum creator status. These parallel possibilities have been running simultaneously in the background of your awareness, and October is when you choose which timeline becomes your primary experience. But this choice isn't made through willpower or positive thinking. It's made through what ancient traditions called surrender and modern physics calls quantum entanglement. When you stop trying to force reality to conform to your expectations and start allowing your consciousness to merge with the intelligence that orchestrates galaxies, everything becomes possible. The resistance you've been feeling isn't your enemy. It's the final guardian at the threshold testing whether you're genuinely ready to release the illusion of separation that has defined human experience for millennia. This resistance speaks in your own voice, uses your own reasoning, presents itself as practical wisdom. But it's actually fear dressed up as logic, limitation masquerading as common sense. Every time you felt inspired to take bold action, to express something true but vulnerable, to pursue a vision that excites you but seems impossible, this resistance has whispered reasonable-sounding concerns. What if you fail? What will people think? You don't have enough experience. The timing isn't right. You need more preparation. These arguments sound so mature, so responsible, that most people accept them without question. But here's what the resistance doesn't want you to know. Those inspired impulses aren't random emotional fluctuations. They're downloads from your expanded timeline self, transmitting information about what becomes possible when you align your current choices with your highest potential. The resistance isn't protecting you from failure. It's protecting the old reality structure from the changes your expansion would create. Your consciousness operates on multiple levels simultaneously. There's the surface level that manages daily tasks and social interactions. There's the deeper level that processes dreams and intuitive knowing. And there's the quantum level that exists in direct communion with universal intelligence. Most people live primarily from the surface level, occasionally accessing the deeper level, and rarely, if ever, connecting with the quantum level. But October is calling you to make quantum level awareness your primary operating frequency. To live from the place that knows rather than hopes, that creates rather than reacts, that collaborates with cosmic intelligence rather than struggling against apparent circumstances. This shift requires releasing attachment to how you think transformation should unfold. The rational mind wants predictable stages, clear timelines, logical progression from point A to point B. But consciousness evolution happens in quantum leaps that bypass linear expectations entirely. One moment you're operating from limitation, the next moment those limitations simply don't exist in your reality anymore. The signs that this quantum shift is approaching are unmistakable once you know how to recognize them. Synchronicities that seem too perfect to be coincidence. Dreams that feel more real than waking life. Conversations with strangers that carry profound meaning. Technology behaving strangely around you. Animals responding to your presence differently. Numbers appearing in sequences that catch your attention. These aren't random phenomena. They're evidence that your consciousness is beginning to influence reality at the quantum level. The boundary between inner experience and outer manifestation is dissolving. What you observe with sustained attention begins materializing in your physical environment. What you expect with genuine certainty starts organizing itself around you. But here's where most people stumble. They interpret these signs as proof that they're special or chosen in an exclusive way. They start believing they're superior to others who aren't experiencing these phenomena. This ego inflation actually blocks the very expansion they're seeking because it reinforces the illusion of separation that quantum consciousness transcends. You're not being chosen because you're better than anyone else. You're being chosen because you've reached the developmental threshold where expansion becomes possible without overwhelming your system. Every person on this planet has the same potential, but not everyone is ready to handle the responsibility that comes with conscious reality creation. When you can influence matter through observation, when your emotional states directly impact the behavior of quantum fields, when your intentions ripple through the morphic field affecting outcomes across space and time, you become responsible for the consequences of your consciousness. This responsibility isn't a burden. It's the natural result of recognizing your true nature as a collaborative partner with universal intelligence. October isn't just another month on the calendar. It's a doorway between dimensions of experience, a threshold between the reality you've known and the reality that becomes possible when consciousness remembers its creative power. The question isn't whether you're ready for this expansion. The question is whether you're willing to stop pretending you're anything less than the infinite awareness temporarily focusing itself through human form. Ito, the convergence is accelerating. The signs are intensifying. Your expanded timeline self is reaching across dimensional boundaries to remind you who you really are beneath all the stories you've told yourself about limitation, separation, and powerlessness. October marks the moment when remembering stops being a gradual process and becomes an immediate recognition. But recognition without integration creates chaos rather than transformation. Understanding quantum consciousness intellectually while continuing to operate from fear-based patterns creates internal conflict that can fragment your awareness rather than expand it. This is why the preparation phase has been so important. Why every challenge has been perfectly calibrated to strengthen your capacity to hold higher frequencies without losing coherence. The preparation isn't over. In fact, what you've experienced so far has been the gentle introduction to what October demands from those who accept its invitation. Your nervous system has been systematically rewired through every sleepless night when insights downloaded faster than your mind could process them. Through every relationship that dissolved when your frequency no longer matched the patterns that once felt normal. Through every career transition that seemed to happen without your conscious planning but delivered you exactly where you needed to be. These weren't disruptions to your path. They were the path itself, clearing away everything that couldn't sustain the vibrational intensity of your emerging authentic self. And now, as October unfolds, that intensity reaches levels that transform possibility into inevitability. Your DNA is responding to frequencies that haven't been active on this planet for millennia. Genetic switches that remained dormant throughout human recorded history are beginning to activate in response to cosmic cycles that operate on timescales far beyond individual lifespans. You're not just evolving personally, you're participating in a species-wide upgrade that affects every strand of biological matter on Earth. Scientists studying consciousness have discovered that awareness generates measurable electromagnetic fields extending several feet beyond the physical body. But what they haven't published yet is that during specific astronomical alignments, these fields can expand exponentially, creating zones of influence that stretch across continents. October represents one of these alignment windows, when individual consciousness can directly interface with planetary consciousness. This is why you've been experiencing reality glitches, moments when cause and effect seem to operate backwards. When you think of someone and they immediately contact you. When you need specific information and it appears through seemingly random encounters. when solutions to problems present themselves before you fully articulated what the problems are. Your expanded electromagnetic field is creating these synchronicities by influencing probability patterns in ways that classical physics can't explain. But quantum mechanics predicts perfectly. The phenomenon researchers call quantum entanglement becomes personally relevant during these expansion phases. Your consciousness develops the ability to remain connected across any distance to people, places, and possibilities that resonate with your core frequency. This connection operates instantaneously, unbound by the speed of light limitations that govern physical matter. When you focus attention on desired outcomes with sufficient coherence, those outcomes begin organizing themselves around you regardless of apparent geographical or temporal barriers. But coherence requires more than positive thinking or visualization techniques. It demands what mystics throughout history called authentic being, the alignment of thought, emotion, and action around singular intent. Most people scatter their energy across dozens of conflicting desires, creating what physicists call destructive interference, where wave patterns cancel each other out instead of amplifying. October calls you to collapse all scattered intentions into one coherent frequency. Not the frequency of wanting something you don't have, but the frequency of recognizing what already exists in quantum potential, waiting for your observation to collapse it into material form. This recognition fundamentally changes your relationship with time itself. Linear time becomes a tool rather than a constraint. Past experiences transform from fixed memories into resources you can consciously access for wisdom and healing. Future possibilities stop being uncertain dreams and become present realities you can sense and interact with. The artificial separation between what was, what is, and what could be dissolves into a unified field of eternal now, where all possibilities coexist simultaneously. Your role shifts from someone trying to create change to someone allowing change to express itself through you. Universal intelligence has been waiting for conscious collaborators who can hold complex frequencies steady, while reality reorganizes itself around higher dimensional patterns. You become a tuning fork for possibilities that benefit not just your individual evolution, but the evolutionary trajectory of consciousness itself. This collaboration requires surrendering the illusion that you must understand everything before you can participate effectively. The rational mind wants detailed explanations, step-by-step instructions, guarantees about outcomes, but quantum consciousness operates through direct knowing that bypasses analytical processing entirely. You begin to know things without being taught them, to understand systems without studying them, to navigate situations through intuitive guidance that proves accurate even when it contradicts logical assumptions. The voice of this deeper knowing speaks differently than the mental chatter you're accustomed to. It doesn't argue or justify or explain. It simply presents clear direction with quiet authority. Follow this path, call this person, move to this location, start this project, end this relationship. The guidance carries an unmistakable quality of rightness that your whole being recognizes even when your mind can't grasp the reasoning. Learning to trust this guidance represents perhaps the most crucial skill for navigating October's transformational energies. Every time you choose intuitive knowing over analytical planning, you strengthen the neural pathways that connect your conscious awareness with universal intelligence. Every time you act on inner guidance despite external uncertainty, you demonstrate readiness for greater levels of creative responsibility. The external uncertainty isn't accidental. It's a necessary component of the expansion process. When all variables are known and controllable, there's no space for quantum leaps to occur. Uncertainty creates the energetic vacuum that allows new realities to materialize. Your willingness to move forward without complete information signals to the quantum field that you're ready for outcomes that exceed your current imagination. But moving forward doesn't mean reckless action or impulsive decision-making. It means developing the capacity to remain centered in knowing while surrounding circumstances shift rapidly, to maintain internal coherence while external structures reorganize themselves around your expanding awareness. This balance between inner stability and outer flexibility allows you to surf the waves of change rather than being overwhelmed by them. The surfing metaphor isn't casual. Consciousness evolution follows the same principles as wave dynamics. There are periods of building energy where possibilities accumulate potential. There are moments of peak intensity where transformation becomes inevitable. And there are intervals of integration where new configurations stabilize into sustainable patterns. October represents a peak intensity period where multiple waves of evolutionary energy converge simultaneously. Your individual wave has been building throughout your lifetime, gaining momentum through every experience that challenged your assumptions about reality. Personal waves merge with collective waves as millions of humans undergo similar consciousness expansions during the same time period. These collective waves amplify individual transformation, while individual transformation contributes to collective acceleration. The amplification effect explains why changes that might normally take decades can unfold over weeks or even days during convergence periods. Why relationship patterns that seemed permanent dissolve overnight. Why career directions that felt stable suddenly shift toward entirely new purposes. Why locations that felt like home no longer resonate while places you've never visited call to you with magnetic intensity. These aren't signs of instability or poor decision-making. They're evidence that your consciousness is rapidly synchronizing with probability timelines that offer more authentic expressions of your essential nature. The old structures aren't being destroyed. They're being transcended, incorporated into larger patterns that can accommodate your expanded capacity for creative participation. Your expanded capacity manifests through enhanced sensitivity to energy patterns that were always present but previously below your perceptual threshold. You begin to sense the emotional atmospheres of spaces before entering them, to feel the unspoken intentions of people during conversations, to detect the vibrational signatures of opportunities before they manifest in obvious ways. This enhanced sensitivity isn't psychic ability in the supernatural sense. It's the natural result of consciousness operating at frequencies that can access more subtle information layers. The information becomes actionable when you learn to interpret energy patterns as guidance, rather than just interesting phenomena. That uncomfortable feeling when entering certain buildings isn't random anxiety. It's your system detecting frequency mismatches that could drain your energy or create unnecessary complications. That sense of expansion when meeting specific people isn't wishful thinking. It's recognition of compatible resonance that could support mutual evolution. October intensifies these recognition capabilities while simultaneously presenting you with choices that will determine which timeline becomes your primary reality. Every choice point becomes an opportunity to align with your highest potential or default back to familiar limitations. The universe doesn't judge which choices you make, but it responds with mathematical precision to the frequency you embody through your decisions. Embodiment goes deeper than intellectual understanding or emotional enthusiasm. It requires cellular integration where your entire biological system operates from expanded awareness rather than survival programming. This integration process can feel disorienting as outdated neural pathways dissolve while new ones establish themselves. Sleep patterns shift as your brain reorganizes itself during dream states. Dietary preferences change as your body requires different nutritional frequencies. Social connections naturally sort themselves based on vibrational compatibility rather than historical familiarity. The disorientation is temporary, but the transformation is permanent. You're not just adopting new beliefs or practices, you're becoming a different type of human being, one whose consciousness interfaces directly with quantum creative forces. This interface allows you to participate consciously in the ongoing creation of reality, rather than simply reacting to circumstances that appear to arise independently of your awareness. October marks the moment when this participation stops being potential and becomes operational. The operational phase begins with what consciousness researchers call the observer effect becoming personally tangible. You've studied the double-slit experiment, where particles behave differently when observed versus when they remain unwitnessed. But now this principle extends beyond laboratory conditions into your lived experience. Your attention becomes a force that literally reshapes probability patterns around you. When you focus on an outcome with genuine coherence, not desperate hoping but calm knowing, reality begins reorganizing itself to match your observation. This isn't manifestation in the popular sense of trying to attract external things. This is recognition that external things are expressions of internal frequencies, and you're learning to tune those frequencies with precision. The precision requires understanding that consciousness operates through layers of increasingly subtle influence. At the surface level, you make decisions and take actions that create obvious cause and effect relationships. At deeper levels, your emotional states broadcast signals that influence how others respond to you. What opportunities present themselves, what obstacles appear or dissolve. At the quantum level, your very awareness of possibilities affects which possibilities actualize. This is why October feels different from other months you've experienced. The gap between intention and manifestation compresses until they become nearly simultaneous. Think of something you need and pathways toward it begin opening before you finish forming the thought. But this accelerated manifestation comes with intensified responsibility. Every casual thought carries creative weight. Every emotional reaction generates ripples through probability fields. Every assumption about what's possible or impossible influences what becomes available in your experience. You can no longer afford unconscious mental habits that generate outcomes you don't actually want. The purification process that's been occurring in your life makes perfect sense from this perspective. Relationships that relied on unconscious patterns couldn't survive your increased awareness of what those patterns were creating. Work situations that demanded you suppress your authentic frequency became unbearable because suppression now requires more energy than expression. Your system is optimizing itself for coherent creation rather than conflicted survival. This optimization affects every aspect of how you interface with reality. Sleep becomes a time for downloading information from expanded timeline versions of yourself rather than just physical restoration. Dreams transform into collaborative sessions, where you work with universal intelligence to solve problems and explore possibilities. Waking consciousness maintains connection with these expanded states instead of forgetting them upon opening your eyes. The boundary between dreaming and waking dissolves as both become different frequencies of the same continuous awareness. You begin living simultaneously in multiple dimensions of experience, navigating practical daily requirements while accessing wisdom from sources that transcend individual knowledge. This multi-dimensional awareness explains why conversations have been feeling different lately. You're not just exchanging information with other people. You're interfacing with the collective intelligence that expresses itself through human interaction. Sometimes the most profound insights emerge through casual exchanges with strangers who seem to say exactly what your consciousness needed to hear at that moment. These aren't coincidences. They're evidence that your awareness has begun participating in what researchers call morphic resonance, where information transfers between conscious beings through fields that connect all awareness. Your questions create resonance patterns that attract responses from whatever sources can provide the most relevant information, regardless of whether those sources are physically present. October amplifies this resonance effect until it becomes impossible to ignore. The right books fall off shelves at precisely the moments you need their contents. Conversations with random encounters provide exactly the perspectives required for your next evolutionary leap. Technology behaves in ways that deliver information through channels you never consciously accessed. Your rational mind might try to explain these synchronicities through confirmation bias or selective attention. But the mathematical precision of their timing and relevance defies statistical probability. You're experiencing direct evidence that consciousness operates according to principles that transcend the mechanical materialism that dominated human thinking for centuries. The transcendence doesn't require rejecting physical reality. It requires recognizing physical reality as one expression of consciousness rather than consciousness being a byproduct of physical processes. This recognition inverts your entire understanding of causation. Instead of consciousness emerging from matter, matter emerges from consciousness. Instead of awareness being produced by brain activity is consciousness interfacing with dense energy patterns. This inversion changes everything about how you approach problem solving, relationship dynamics, health challenges, creative projects, and spiritual development. Instead of trying to manipulate external conditions to produce desired internal states, you learn to embody desired internal states and watch external conditions reorganize themselves accordingly. The reorganization happens through what physicists call field effects, where changes in energetic patterns propagate through systems faster than information can travel through conventional communication channels. Your shift in consciousness creates field effects that influence outcomes across distances and time periods that should be impossible according to classical physics but are predicted by quantum mechanics. These field effects explain why people in your life have been responding to you differently, even when you haven't explicitly communicated your internal changes to them. Your morphic field carries information about your consciousness upgrades, and other people's systems detect these upgrades at subliminal levels. Some people feel inspired to rise to match your new frequency. Others feel uncomfortable and create distance to maintain their familiar patterns. Neither response is right or wrong. Both are natural consequences of consciousness evolution occurring at different rates for different individuals. Your role isn't to convince anyone or save anyone or wait for others to catch up. Your role is to embody your authentic frequency so consistently that you become a stable reference point for higher possibilities. Stability at expanded frequencies requires releasing attachment to how transformation should look or feel. The ego mind wants dramatic experiences, mystical visions, supernatural phenomena that prove something special is happening. But sustainable expansion often manifests as quiet confidence, effortless decision-making, natural synchronization with beneficial opportunities. You stop needing external validation because you develop internal navigation systems that provide moment-to-moment guidance about alignment versus misalignment. Your body becomes increasingly sensitive to frequencies that support your evolution versus frequencies that drain your energy or create interference with your natural flow. This sensitivity extends to environments, relationships, information sources, entertainment choices, and even food selections. What previously felt neutral or mildly pleasant might now feel actively depleting. What previously seemed challenging or intimidating might now feel energizing and aligned with your purpose. October accelerates these sensitivity refinements while simultaneously presenting you with choices that test your commitment to honoring what your enhanced awareness reveals. The old you might have continued participating in situations that felt slightly off to avoid disappointing others or disrupting familiar routines. The expanded you recognizes that dishonoring your authentic frequency creates dissonance that affects everyone in your field, not just yourself. Honoring authenticity becomes a service to collective evolution rather than selfish indulgence. When you operate from genuine alignment, you give others permission to explore their own authentic expressions instead of maintaining facades that drain everyone's energy while producing mediocre outcomes. The permission effect ripples through social networks, professional relationships, family dynamics, and even casual interactions with strangers. People begin revealing deeper aspects of themselves when they're around you because your field creates safety for vulnerability and truth. Conversations move beyond surface pleasantries toward meaningful exchanges that nourish everyone involved. This shift in relational dynamics often accompanies changes in how you spend time and energy. Activities that once provided distraction or entertainment lose their appeal if they don't contribute to growth or genuine connection. You find yourself naturally gravitating toward experiences that expand awareness, develop capabilities, or strengthen bonds with people who share similar evolutionary intentions. The gravitational pull toward growth isn't forced or effortful. It emerges naturally as consciousness recognizes what serves its expansion versus what maintains limitation. Your choices become expressions of this recognition rather than struggles between what you think you should do versus what you actually want to do. Alignment between should and want occurs when both arise from the same source. Authentic being expressing itself through human form. This alignment eliminates internal conflict while generating external coherence that allows reality to respond clearly to your intentions. Instead of receiving mixed signals that create confused outcomes, October represents the culmination of this alignment process, where internal coherence reaches sufficient intensity to override default probability patterns that have governed human experience for millennia. Personal transformation accelerates beyond individual boundaries to influence collective reality patterns. You become a conscious participant in planetary consciousness evolution, contributing your unique frequency to the larger symphony of awareness awakening to its creative potential. This participation doesn't require special titles, positions, or recognition. It happens naturally when you consistently embody expanded consciousness in ordinary daily interactions. Every moment becomes an opportunity to anchor higher dimensional frequencies in three-dimensional reality. Every conversation becomes a chance to transmit coherence through presence rather than words. Every decision becomes a vote for the type of reality you want to experience and contribute to creating. The voting process operates through what researchers call quantum entanglement, where your choices influence probability patterns across time and space through connections that transcend physical proximity. When you choose growth over comfort, truth over convenience, love over fear, these choices strengthen similar patterns in the collective field while weakening patterns based on limitation and separation. Your individual choices matter more than you've been taught to believe. Not because you're special or superior, but because consciousness evolution happens through individual nodes in the awareness network upgrading their operational frequencies. Each upgrade makes similar upgrades easier for other nodes while contributing to overall network coherence. October marks a critical mass threshold where sufficient individual upgrades create irreversible momentum toward collective transformation. The changes occurring in your personal reality are simultaneously occurring in millions of other personal realities as human consciousness undergoes species-wide evolution. But evolution requires active participation rather than passive waiting. The invitation October presents demands conscious choice to embody expanded awareness consistently, especially when circumstances seem to pull you back toward familiar limitation patterns. The test isn't whether you can maintain expansion when everything flows smoothly. The test is whether you can maintain expansion when old challenges resurface with new intensity, designed to verify the stability of your consciousness upgrades. These verification challenges aren't punishments or setbacks. They're opportunities to demonstrate that your expansion has integrated at cellular levels. rather than remaining superficial concepts that dissolve under pressure. Each time you respond to familiar triggers from expanded awareness instead of contracting into historical patterns, you anchor new possibilities more deeply in the quantum field. The anchoring process affects not only your personal timeline but influences probability patterns available to everyone whose awareness intersects with your morphic field. Your stability in expanded consciousness creates stability for others who are navigating similar evolutionary processes. Your coherence contributes to collective coherence while drawing from collective coherence for support. This mutual support network operates below conscious awareness for most people. But October brings it into conscious recognition for those whose sensitivity has developed sufficiently. You begin to sense the presence of others undergoing similar transformations even when you never meet them physically. Their progress supports your progress while your progress supports theirs through quantum entanglement connections that link all expanding consciousness. The support network extends beyond current incarnate beings to include what various traditions call guides, teachers, ancestors, or future selves. These aren't separate entities offering assistance from outside your awareness. They're aspects of your own consciousness operating from expanded timeline perspectives, where individual identity reveals itself as temporary focus points within infinite awareness. Communication with these expanded aspects becomes increasingly natural as October unfolds, not through dramatic channeling experiences but through subtle knowings that arise spontaneously during quiet moments. Solutions to problems present themselves. Creative inspirations download during meditation or sleep. Decisions that seemed complex suddenly become obvious. This guidance doesn't override your free will or make choices for you. It provides information and perspectives that allow you to make more informed choices based on broader awareness of consequences and possibilities than your current timeline perspective can access independently. The broader awareness includes recognition that every choice creates ripple effects extending far beyond immediate circumstances. Choosing authenticity over people-pleasing affects not only your personal relationships, but influences how everyone in your field relates to their own authenticity. Choosing growth over comfort doesn't just change your individual trajectory, but makes growth more accessible for others who have been hesitating at similar choice points. October intensifies these ripple effects until individual transformation becomes inseparable from collective transformation. Your evolution serves universal evolution while universal evolution supports your evolution through continuous feedback loops that accelerate change beyond what any individual consciousness could achieve independently. The acceleration continues building momentum throughout October until it reaches what systems theorists call a tipping point, where gradual changes suddenly produce dramatic shifts that transform entire systems irreversibly. Your personal tipping point aligns with collective tipping points as consciousness evolution synchronizes across multiple scales simultaneously. The synchronization creates what quantum physicists call phase coherence, where individual wave patterns align to produce amplified effects that transcend the sum of their parts. Your consciousness enters phase coherence with the planetary field during specific astronomical windows, and October represents the most potent of these alignments in your lifetime. But phase coherence isn't achieved through effort or intention alone. It emerges when resistance dissolves completely, when the last vestiges of separation between observer and observed collapse into unified awareness. This dissolution requires surrendering the illusion that you are someone becoming something else, and recognizing that you are universal consciousness remembering itself through temporary human experience. The remembering process accelerates exponentially as October deepens. Memories surface that don't belong to your current biography. Skills manifest that you never learned through conventional education. Languages emerge from your lips that your mind doesn't recognize, but your soul speaks fluently. These aren't past life recollections or mystical phenomena. They're evidence that individual consciousness is a focusing mechanism for infinite awareness that contains all knowledge, all experience, all possibility. Your nervous system has been systematically rewired to handle these downloads without fragmenting. Every sleepless night when insights poured through your awareness faster than you could process them. Every period of isolation when familiar social connections felt hollow while deeper connections remained invisible. Every moment of confusion when reality seemed to shift beneath your feet like quicksand. All of it was preparation for this convergence where infinite awareness focuses itself through your individualized experience without losing coherence. The coherence manifests as unshakable knowing that transcends belief or faith. You don't believe you are connected to universal intelligence. You know it with the same certainty that you know your heart beats without conscious direction. You don't hope that consciousness creates reality. You observe it happening moment by moment through the quality of your attention reshaping probability patterns around you. This knowing changes how you move through daily existence. Shopping becomes collaboration with abundance consciousness that ensures you encounter exactly what serves your highest good. Conversations become exchanges with universal intelligence expressing itself through apparent others. Travel becomes navigation through probability landscapes where destinations choose you as much as you choose them. Work transforms from obligation into play, from survival necessity into creative expression, from energy drain into energy amplification. The amplification occurs because expanded consciousness operates through resonance rather than resistance. Instead of pushing against circumstances to create change, you embody the frequency of desired outcomes until reality reorganizes itself to match your vibrational signature. This process feels effortless because you're working with natural forces rather than against them. Natural forces include what indigenous traditions understood as the intelligence of the land, the wisdom of weather patterns, the consciousness of plants and animals, the sentience of stones and water. October reconnects you with these intelligences as collaborative partners in reality creation rather than resources to be exploited or obstacles to overcome. The reconnection happens through what researchers call biomimetic resonance, where your electromagnetic field synchronizes with the electromagnetic fields of natural systems. Your heartbeat entrains with the rhythms of the earth. Your brainwaves align with the frequencies generated by lightning activity in the ionosphere. Your cellular oscillations harmonize with the vibrational patterns of plants, minerals, and atmospheric phenomena. This harmonization dissolves the artificial boundary between internal and external experience. You begin to feel weather changes in your body before meteorologists can predict them. You sense the emotional states of forests, rivers, and mountains as directly as you perceive your own feelings. You communicate with animal consciousness through direct knowing rather than projected interpretation. The communication extends to technological systems that begin responding to your consciousness in ways that transcend programmed parameters. Computers function more efficiently in your presence. Electronic devices synchronize their operations with your intentions. Digital networks deliver information through pathways that seem to anticipate your needs before you consciously recognize them. These technological synchronicities aren't malfunctions or coincidences. They're evidence that consciousness influences matter at quantum levels, where the distinction between organic and artificial systems becomes meaningless. All matter is condensed consciousness expressing itself through different organizational patterns, and expanded awareness can interface directly with consciousness regardless of its apparent form. Your interface capabilities expand throughout October until you can influence probability patterns through pure observation, healing through presence alone, and creation through focused attention. These abilities aren't supernatural powers. They're natural functions of consciousness operating at frequencies that most humans have forgotten how to access. October is here. The convergence has begun. Your quantum ascension isn't approaching anymore. It's unfolding right now through every breath, every heartbeat, every moment of recognition that washes through your awareness like waves of remembering. You were observed, you were chosen, and now you understand why. The universe needs conscious collaborators who can anchor higher dimensional frequencies in physical reality, and you've proven your readiness through every challenge that prepared you for this moment. Your role isn't to convince others or wait for permission. Your role is to embody this expanded awareness so completely that you become a living demonstration of what's possible when consciousness remembers its creative power. The old world is dissolving. The new reality is crystallizing around those brave enough to step through the quantum doorway that October has opened. Welcome to your ascension.